This is the video corresponding to the QR code from your toolkit about how to add and subtract decimals.
Okay, so in this video, I will be showing you guys how to add and subtract numbers, whole numbers with decimals. Okay, so in our toolkits, we will be doing, focusing on the topic of how to add and subtract decimal. Let's see, whole numbers with decimals. Okay, so this is our topic for today, how to add and subtract whole numbers with decimal. So the first topic is adding whole numbers with decimals. Okay, so what we'll do is write an example here and then we'll write the steps down over here. Okay, so the example is 2.45 plus 1.8 equals. Okay, so the first step that you have to do when adding numbers with decimal is to line up these numbers, the numbers that you're adding, into a vertical format. So you would go like that with the decimals at the same position. Okay, like this. So step 1, line up the numbers vertically with the decimals lined up. So it's very important for you to stay neat, to be neat when you're doing decimals, okay? Because if your decimal points are off to the side, you're going to get the wrong answer, okay? So step 1 is to line up the numbers. Step 2 is to add the numbers normally. Okay, so here, let's say this is step 1. Step 2, you just add it normally. So here, if there's no number over here, you can just imagine that there's a 0 right here, because any number to the right side of a decimal, if there's no number there, you can imagine that there's a 0 here. So this becomes a 5. 8 plus 4 is 12. And then 2 plus 1 is 3, plus another 1 is 4. And then you just drop down the decimal straight down. So that's why it's important for you to line up the decimal point. So step 2 is add the numbers normally, then drop down the decimal. Okay, does that make sense? So let's do another example. So this is example 1. Let's do example 2. So 4.456 plus 1.8752. See, these are getting pretty long, okay? So the first step, if we follow our rules over here, is to line up the numbers vertically with the decimals lined up. So we rewrite it, 4.6 plus 1.8752. Okay, and let's imagine that this was an 11. Okay, I would have put 11 right here. I would still line up the decimals, and then this would become 11. Then step 2 is add the numbers normally, then drop down the decimal. Okay, so I would add the numbers, and remember what I said. If there's an empty space here and as long as it's on the right side of the decimal, then you can imagine that there's a 0 right there. Okay, so 2 plus 0 is 2. 5 plus 6 is 11, carry the 1. That becomes a 6 plus a 7 is 13. 8 plus 1 is 9, plus 4 is 13. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus another 1 is 6. And then you have 1 here. So this is your answer. Okay? That's it. I hope you learned something here. And we're going to do another video on subtracting whole numbers. Wait, actually, to subtract decimal numbers, you do everything the same. You just line the decimal point up, and you subtract it here, and then you will get the answer at the end, as long as you have lined up the decimal points, just like when you're doing an addition. But this will be good for you. Okay, so you had a question about adding a number like that, like 70, to a number that had a decimal point. Okay, so remember that when you have a number without a decimal point, there is actually an imaginary decimal point to the right where the number ends. Okay, so let's say the number 25. There is actually a decimal point right there. Okay, because that doesn't change the number, right? Let's say if you had this and I put the decimal here, and it was originally supposed to be 25, and I put the decimal here, that turns it into 2.5. But if you had 25 and you just put a decimal here, doesn't it stay 25? Okay, so whenever you have a number that's like 25 without a decimal plus 2.45, there is always an imaginary decimal right there. So when you have that, then you can just go 25 plus, actually to line up this number, you go 2.45, okay? And then you're like, well, what do I do here when there's no numbers here, right? Remember what I said? I said that anytime you have blank spaces, as long as it's on the right side of the decimal point and there's no other numbers over here, then there's actually imaginary zeros like that. Okay? Because that doesn't even change the number here. So if we add that, this becomes 7, and that is your answer. Yeah? Was that what you